welcome to What It Takes. I'm Tom Landon. It's not a controversial statement to say that we all think art and the people who create it are important members of a community. That said, it's not a universal truth at all that communities put their money where their mouth is when it comes to supporting art and artists. My guests today are Douglas Jackson, who serves as the Arts and Culture Coordinator for the City of Roanoke, as well as being a tireless supporter of literacy through his Book City Roanoke project. If you've ever been to a cultural event in Roanoke, it's likely you've seen Doug hovering around in the background with an infectious grin that belies his joy in seeing people come together through the arts and culture. Joining Doug is William Penn, another tireless supporter of the arts and an amazing musician. William has theater experience with the Dumas Drama Guild, Mill Mountain Theater, and Showtimers, and was musical director for the much-beloved musical Henry Street. He's also a playwright, has served on various arts councils and commissions. Today, Doug and William are here to talk about an exciting new initiative called the Year of the Artist, and I'm pleased to welcome you both to Blue Ridge PBS to talk about it. Welcome to both of you. I was really excited when you two popped up on the guest list because I think this is a really interesting combination. So as we get started, I just want to ask you, what led you to an interest in the arts in the very first place, William?
From my childhood, actually. Going to church, elementary school, high school, college, and even in the Army, so I've never lost interest in it. And when I started performing in Roanoke, I love the culture in Roanoke, so I got involved here.
And especially as a way to kind of bring different parts of town together, right? And Doug, how about you? You've been promoting art and artists as long as I've known you.
Yeah, I tend to be a bit of a cheerleader, I think. The arts have always been a part of my life, and when I moved to Roanoke, I came here to attend the MFA program at Hollins, and when I decided to stick around for a little bit, the first thing I did was apply to be on the Arts Commission. I thought it'd be a great way to get to know the community, and I've just never let go of my involvement in it.
Be careful what you join, right? Because you might end up in charge of it. Do either of you, do you have a favorite teacher or mentor you remember from your childhood who really, maybe it was a pastor or someone else who really encouraged you to go forward with your art?
That's an interesting question. My first time I went to church, I heard the lady play piano, and I fell in love with it. And that's all I ever wanted to do was learn how to play piano. And I went from there to acting in church plays, and so that's how Miss Murty Baker was her name.
And what school was that? What church was that? I'm sorry.
It's in Pulaski, New Century Methodist Church, and my school was Calvary School.
Sure, sure. Know that school well. and Doug, it may not be related to the arts directly, but is there somebody you remember who really encouraged you and that let you know that arts were kind of a cool thing?
Yeah, I think I've got to say my mom, just that she always had us in band and music and piano lessons. We didn't have much money, and I was thinking about it the other day, I don't know how we quite afforded piano lessons, but it was important to her. And like my mom, I just want to be surrounded by books and music. Yeah.
Right, well, that's good. So we're here to talk about the Year of the Artist. What is the Year of the Artist?
Yeah, the Year of the Artist is a way to kind of take some funds that we have and make them do as much as possible. So we applied to the National Endowment for the Arts for a couple of grants, and as the city, we have money that we put into the arts every year. I think it's substantial. We'd always love to have more, but we like to make it go farther by getting some outside resources. And these resources are going to help us provide an artist in residence program for the city and provide grants for artists to do things, to pursue their art in a way that's good for the community.
And that's nice. I like the fact that it's not the Year of the Arts, it's the Year of the Artist. When you were coming up with your grant proposal, I'm sure, what was it that led you to put the focus on the individuals who create the art?
Yeah, well, every year we give more than $300,000 in program support to organizations. And a lot of times the artists are part of the organizations, but we don't do much specifically directly for the artist. And we used to have an arts council in the community, which was a rallying point and did provide support for the artist. But when we lost that, I think we really lost something. And we're interested in what we can do to kind of build back that energy and synergy.
And I know that I became exposed to you through Henry Street long time ago. We think there is a recording of it actually that was done by the station many years ago, and we're hoping to bring that
more than 30
back.
years ago.
But we'll just put the bug in that we'd like to do that. Don't know if it's technically possible, but you've made kind of a life in the arts right here in Roanoke.
Yes.
And so What's that been like? You often hear that if you want to be an artist, you need to move somewhere else. How have you kind of made a life in the arts here?
I guess just by endurance. I like what I do, and people love to see people work in things they really love doing. And I love doing, playing and acting and all of that. And just putting yourself out there, let yourself be known.
And so now you're helping sort of, not as an artist, although I'm sure there's part of that to this too, but what led you to be in support of this initiative?
Well, I got involved with the Arts Council before it dissolved, and I loved the work they were doing. And after it dissolved, Susan called and asked me if I wanted to be part of the Arts Commission. And I love encouraging artists, playwrights, whatever, in doing what they need to do. And if I can be a catalyst in helping them get where they need to go, I really want to be a part of that.
Well, that's great. And when we talk about, supporting people getting where they want to go, I mean, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the role of Roanoke City Schools, and this program does go out well beyond Roanoke, but I think Roanoke City has become kind of a beacon for arts education, Doug. Is that your impression as well?
It is. In fact, we're having very current conversations about that and providing some resources and some tools to help the school district even better tell that story. If you think, Carrie Gates is the chair of the Arts Commission, and she used to be the fine arts coordinator or supervisor for the school district. And we're really proud. If you walk onto some of the campuses, the high schools in particular, you feel like, I feel like I'm at a college at an art school, as a matter of fact. So I think it's a real asset for us.
And I think that is a challenge because the facilities are so good, and this is true in Roanoke County and many of the surrounding school divisions as well. But like then kids, they have access to amazing photography studios and music composition rooms and all of this stuff, and then they get out of school and they find that support isn't always there for them. It's a little, you don't have access to a kiln if you're a potter or whatever it might be. How are you kind of defining art? When you're supporting artists, what does that encompass for you?
It's very broad. On the sign up, there's a registration, so we're trying to get people to register for it. We have about 250 artists registered so far, and it's everything from quilting, painting, fine arts, traditional craft, music, performing arts, the whole gamut.
Many of us might be artists without knowing it.
True.
And what's the process of deciding who is good? First of all, if somebody is watching this and they're like, wait, I'm an artist, I'd like to know more. Where would they go to find out more, the easiest place?
Yeah, we've got a portal. It's on roanokearts.org, and it's /YOTA, Y-O-T-A, Year of the Artist. Or you can see it right at the top of the webpage. And there you'll find our current calls, the meetings. We're meeting every Tuesday night at 6:30 for an hour on Zoom. The resources, we've got a number of resources that are used across the country in communities. And a registration, and folks can go on and fill out that registration. And we really see, I'll tell you, I guess it's kind of a secret, that we see the artist as a stand-in for everybody because everyone is creative. And in the community, if we could align what we're passionate about and create the way that we're creative and align it with the community good and kind of get all this aligned, I'm convinced that we could do anything. And so we're experimenting and trying to build a learning community around that this year.
Sure, I know, and I don't want to be cynical, and I'm not the cynical person, but I'll represent all the cynical people out there. With all the problems we have in the world today, and whether it's violence or people just not getting along or talking past each other, and all of the conflict that we have present, economic difficulty, all of the horrible, sad things that are going on in the world today. Why should we put this much energy into supporting art and artists?
I think art in itself has a calming effect on people and the community. And I think if you invest or get your children or a club and somebody invested in art, you're doing something that will make people creative and work towards peace.
And how to, in terms of the other goals of the city, you work with the city, how does art kind of fit into everything else that a city has to do?
Yeah, I think it fits in perfectly. And I think the kind of the way the conversation's been framed, in a way, we think of arts as extra. It's on top of it. But there's no reason why it should be considered that. It's part of every aspect of what we do as the city. So I've been meeting with other departments in the city, everyone from stormwater, neighborhood development, gun violence task force, and we're aligning artists directly to work within these areas, so that we say, and this is a conversation we had last night actually in a meeting, that artists bring something different, whether it's creative problem solving, a different lens. We can change the way we're having conversations. And part of that is breaking through the noise. And that noise can be a stereotype about a type of person. It can be the way we've always done things. And we hope to challenge things a little bit in a gentle way. But we think there's real potential for it. And we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to learn every step of the way.
Right. How would you describe the current state of the arts? You're doing all these things to support it, but in Roanoke and the region around it?
It's super vibrant. I know that it's been a tough period. I met with all the executive directors just last week. We continued our support as a city. We put just under $500,000 in CARES Act funding into the arts and cultural organizations. We're doing contracts right now for $1 million in ARPA funding, American Rescue Act funding, for the arts and cultural organizations. We realize how critical they are to creating a strong regional economy, to helping to create strong neighborhoods, and especially for those lifelong learning opportunities that we really cherish in the community.
And you've been doing this, I don't want to date you, but you've been doing this a while.
A number of years.
So in your number of years in Roanoke, working with the Arts Council and the Arts Commission, and also as a working musician and everything else, what have you seen?
I've seen the art community grow and become more inclusive of the citizens of Roanoke. And I think the citizens are now realizing that art is not an elitist thing, that everybody can take part in it, and I really like that.
Yeah, that's good. So let's talk about some of the stated goals of the Year of the Artist. First of all, advancing community goals. How are those goals determined, and how is this project going to help there?
Yeah, we just came out with City Plan 2040 in December.
2040.
Yeah, just 2040. We're looking 20 years ahead. We're required to do a comprehensive
Sure.
plan, as every community is. And one of the things we did was kind of do a deep dive into it. We did it through Book City Roanoke and the Arts Commission partnered, and we had folks I think we spent 3 weeks looking at City Plan 2040 and the goals. And when we give funding to arts and cultural organizations, we've asked them particularly to tell us how they're helping us to advance those city goals. So we're investing in the organizations, but we're also saying, hey, how are you working in the community? And William's the chair of that funding committee, and it is a very robust process. And I think that's one of the primary ways that we're looking at those goals with our resources.
So as the chair, and you're looking at how I don't know if you're looking at how resources are distributed, but how people are using them. What's coming up in your conversations?
We look for diversity, and we look from one year to the other to see how it's growing in reaching the population, especially the minorities, and trying to make it inclusive. And most of the programs seem to be growing year by year. So the funding is well spent.
Have you looked back at all? If this is a 20-year plan, I assume there was probably one done in 2004, 2020. Have you looked back to that to see how it aligned?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and that was certainly part of the City Plan 2040 process. I'll probably speak more to the Arts and Cultural Plan from 2011 that
Okay.
Rupert Cutler and I chaired that team in creating the Arts and Cultural Plan. It was about a 10-year plan that we accomplished 80% of it. And we had the 3 building blocks of the strong economy and livable communities, and then the lifelong learning. And we've done a terrific job with it. But it's dated now. And so now part of what we have to do is say, what are the arts going to do for us in that next part? The 2040 plan is a framework, but we can go even deeper than that. And that's what we're asking the artists to do in a way. This year of experimentation, we're going to learn what the arts can do. We don't know. I'm convinced if we wrote the plan today, we would shortchange ourselves. But we're asking artists to dig in and show us what they can do. Interesting
to bring artists into what, a fairly bureaucratic process, and I wonder how their brains wrap around that sometimes. But that's a good idea, and I think about the changes. Roanoke City is the economic engine of this whole region. So I think about the changes just in the last 20 years in how many people live downtown, what happens downtown. And then in the broader city as a whole. Okay, so in terms of exploring and experimenting, that's another one of your stated goals. You've addressed that a little bit, but what do you see as some of the potential experimentations that are going to happen through Year of the Artist?
I can't even imagine. I don't think we're going to be really surprised when we put the call out. There's going to be a broad call, and I think it's going to be called Art Matters Grants, and those will be very individual per person. So an individual artist will say, this is what I'm passionate about, this is how it aligns, and here's a proposal. It's going to be very, very open, and I think we're going to get some really, really creative responses.
And you've addressed some of these others I have here, building a learning community. I think we've talked about that, but I'm guessing that you're asking people to be engaged with the rest of the community, to not just do their art, but to teach about it as well. Is that right?
And even more than teaching about it, being willing to learn in front of other people, with other people. It's very different. And if you think about if you're an elected official, you're expected to know everything, have an answer for everything, and that's just not the way the world works. So if we can dig in on projects together and say, hey, we don't know the answer, but we're willing to try and evaluate and reflect as we do it, who knows what's going to happen.
And that brings us, I think we've talked about that you're talking about integrating artists into civic problem solving. Paying artists. This will make you popular. I know that many artists are asked all the time to donate something for a good cause, or would you perform for some exposure? What's the importance of paying artists?
I think it makes them feel that their talent is worth something monetarily as well as self-expression. And it's sort of a motivational thing. And it's not much, but it's enough to get you motivated.
Right. Well, and it's that old adage, right? I mean, I don't want to pay $500 for somebody to play the piano at my wedding, but then you think, well, wait, how many hours did they have to practice to be able to do that? How many hours do they have to drive to be there to be, and they're not getting $500 for an hour's work. They're getting 50 cents an hour if you think about all of the work that they,
a lifetime of preparation.
They put into it. And the final goal is building the network. So what will that look like in terms of building a network of artists and art supporters?
Yeah, we hope that it's going to happen in a lot of different ways. We're basically convening the group. It's virtual right now, unfortunately, but we hope to get back into physical spaces where we can, a private space where we can have a glass of wine, relax with each other, network some. It can go in many directions. One area that we are really interested in is young artists. Support for young artists would look very different than support for other artists. And I said last night to someone, I said, well, you know what? You as a young artist are the person who can tell us how we can do that. So what would your solution be? What do you need the most
now in order to feel supported as an artist?
Yeah, so if we can provide a kind of a loose structure that lets them create some goals and some experiments, and then we're committed to rallying to find some resources to support it.
I mean, I'm just have things going through my mind. Like I remember, I think it was probably 10, 12 years ago, and there was a group of young artists in town that were really shaking things up, and they were doing their own shows, and they were having events. And now I know some of those artists pretty well, and they're in their 40s and 50s now. They're not the young artists anymore. I don't know who the young artists are anymore. I'm excited to find out through your program.
Yeah, I think there's a good crew of young artists. I'm pretty excited about getting to know them.
Sure. Tell me about the Roanoke Self-Portrait Project.
Yeah, that's our very first call, and this one, it's $500 we're paying for a self-portrait, and we pay that up front. So we actually, before we even see the portrait, we're building trust. And so we give them $500 and say, Okay, now we ask you to come back in June with a self-portrait of you in a public space in Roanoke, reflecting on something that you care about in the community. It could be a challenge that you care about, an asset that you love, and we're really excited about that. We're going to have the resources to pay for 50 self-portraits, and they'll be on display on the 4th floor of the municipal building just outside the council chambers.
Well, that's exciting that it's not just do a self-portrait, it's put yourself in the context of the community and do your self-portrait. Southeast Greenways, Gateways. You talked a little bit about making sure that we're reflecting the diversity of the community. I think there are some parts of town that kind of get left out in some of these initiatives sometimes. What's the Southeast Greenways Gateway, and how does that fit into that? Do you know?
Doug knows more about that one than I do.
That's fine.
So I'll let you answer that, Doug.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, we did a project last year, 2 years ago, I guess, the Arches project down under Memorial Bridge.
Right.
We
I
did
have ridden my bicycle under there.
Yeah. Just saying, okay, well, here's a space. Can we make it more of a gathering space? And we've been, the Southeast Roanoke is doing terrific work with the arts, and I called Sonny up, who runs I Heart Southeast, that effort. And I said, Sonny, we got a grant we can apply for. It's due at midnight. Can you help me out? And she rallied, and we got a grant. So we've got $20,000 of city money and NEA, National Endowment for the Arts money, to look at 2 bridges, the 9th Street Bridge and the 13th Street Bridge. And we had some meetings with the community where they set goals. They said, we want to use this space to acknowledge and celebrate the river. We want to acknowledge the indigenous population that lived here, the Monacan and Tutelo Indians. They wanted to kind of celebrate the industrial site there.
Sure.
The people who live there now. There were lots of goals. So we're asking artists, hey, artists, how would you address this? Is it a mural underneath the bridge? Is it some other, it could be a
But the goals are coming from the community. So it's not some art project that they're now going to say, I didn't ask for this. Why did you give me this, right?
Yeah, exactly. We really want, no matter what the public art project is, we want it to have, it's public art. So we don't want an artist just to go plop something in the community. Sometimes that can be interesting and challenging and make us think and reflect, but in that way it engages the community. But we can also plan with the community, set goals with the community, actually create the art with the community, and so we're really excited to see what happens on the Greenway.
Yeah, with that plan, it makes the community take ownership in what's happening, and the support is really better that way.
Right, and things have to be taken care of too, right? If you want, especially a public art project that might be under a bridge, you have to know that people from the community really value it, so that it'll be there for a long time. We've addressed some of this a little bit, but William, I want to ask this to you: how do we make sure that art isn't elitist? Sometimes we think of art as being, highbrow. How do we make sure it's of the people and part of the community?
We have to get the entire community involved. And when I'll go back to when I was a child, the Roanoke Symphony used to come to Pulaski. And when I first started going to the little concerts, I was the only black person there.
Right.
And eventually I would talk to other people, or the teachers would talk to other people. And eventually everybody got interested in going to those things. So I think just word of mouth, being inclusive in your organizations will get it out of the elitist state, I think.
This is a very big question, but how does art help solve civic problems?
It's a great big question. We've got to be creative. We've got to be able to work with non-traditional partners. We've got to be able to create solutions that come from the community. So each one of these projects, especially in the Artist in Residence program, we hope that they're engaging the community in these challenges and saying, how do we look at it differently?
I'm going to address this to both of you, and this may be one of our last questions here, but what do you hope people are going to say about the Year of the Artist when it's over?
I hope they'll say, let's do it again. Let's keep this going, because I think it'll be worthwhile after we get it planned, and right now it's in the planning stage. And I think it'll be worth everybody getting involved in to keep it going.
What's the, it's 2022 to 23. What is it, when will people start seeing the Year of the Artist really,
Yeah,
the results?
we'll really kick it off in July when we have the installation of the self-portrait project on the 4th floor. This whole set of months between now and July, it's the artists coming together to plan and to respond to calls, and they're even helping us shape the calls as we go. We're building the ship as we sail it.
All right, so Doug, to you in our last little bit here, what do you hope that people will say about the Year of the Artist later?
Yeah, I hope we look back and say that's the point where something shifted. We want it to be transformational.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you both for being here. As we wrap up the program, I would like to thank both Doug and William for taking time out to join me here. Blue Ridge PBS is proud to have been a part of the Roanoke arts and culture scene for the past 55 years, and I think I speak for everyone here when I say we are really looking forward to this year-long focus on artists. For What It Takes, I'm Tom Landon.